started. So officially, aloha from Hawaii. You can see I'm here at the beach. This is actually a picture from the North Shore here in Oahu, where I lived for 20 some years. I don't live there anymore, so it is a picture, but this is a true feeling when you visit Hawaii. You come to the North Shore and the beaches are almost empty, like you see on the picture, even if we have tourists coming in, what we don't have right now. I'm really glad everyone is on board. I think we're going to have a really exciting session here today. Our main guest is Professor Geoffrey Lipman. He's joining us from Brussels. And he hardly needs an introduction. Geoffrey has been around for a little bit in this industry, I would think. And he is the founder, known as the founder and first CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC. He has been an assistant Secretary General for UNWTO. He's been with IATA, and he has been in the green travel environment for many, many years. But before we get started with Geoffrey, I just wanted to acknowledge a number of people. Maybe before I do this, I'm going to mute everyone. And if you wanted to speak up, basically you can raise your hand. There is a blue button what raises your hand. We want to keep this interactive like we always do. And this way, the background noise is better if we mute everyone else who's not speaking. But there's so many people in here also I know, and they have been joining us now week after week. Too many to mention everyone. But besides Geoffrey, I also wanted to recognize my colleague Cuthbert Nikubi. Cuthbert is the head and the chairman of the African Tourism Board. I will give you the word for a minute or so, Cuthbert, after this. We have Tony Smith from the IFRI group in Hong Kong. I wanted to add something later on. He's a good friend, and he's also involved not only with Rebuilding Travel, also with the African Tourism Board, PATA, and many other organizations. Before we get started with Geoffrey, Cuthbert, why don't you just say a brief hello from the African Tourism Board? And I'm going to unmute you so you can do that actually. You may have to unmute from your side too. Okay, there you go.
No, thank you so much, Jürgen. And it's once again an honor with my leaders, Dr. Taleb, Tony, and the rest, and to Prof Lipman. I've been following your work, and I'm a very big fan of your endeavors, especially within the tourism space. And the ever-pressing environmental challenges of our day can no longer be left in the hands of the scientific community. Global warming, it's sending the communities of our planet to a heightened state of despair. The future is at stake, and yet the present is undated with ever-increasing disasters and environmental catastrophes. So the need at hand is ever so pressing, such that all stakeholders have to come on board. It cannot be business as usual any longer, as we are hard-pressed at all four corners of our globe, and therefore scientific participation can no longer be the major activity of our day. Let all of humanity participate in a meaningful deliberations and activities, as we are all sure of the challenges at hand. It is a global challenge, and therefore it demands global participation and global contribution. I'm looking forward for this active participation. Thank you so much, Jürgen.
Thank you very much, Cuthbert. And also welcome, like always, our co-host and patron and mentor, Dr. Taleb Rifa is joining us from Jordan. Good morning, Taleb. I think we have to unmute you as well. There you go.
Good morning, Jürgen. It's lovely to be here with you in this wonderful morning here. I know it's night in Honolulu, but it's still morning here. Geoffrey, it's a pleasure to be with you. Good to see you again. You're looking good. Thank you so much, Geoffrey. We're colleagues, we go for a long, long way. Cuthbert, our good chairman, Thank you for your kind words always. Sir, we're living today without doubt with uncertainty and prompted so much fear and panic into our minds and hearts. Right from the start, governments have stepped in aggressively, though in varying degrees, and the governments of the world have so far put all their energy into containing this disease medically, maybe because understandably life and health are human priorities. However, the world quickly in few weeks began to discover that life post-corona is equally, not more important than life and dignity and prosperity. What is life if it's not with dignity and prosperity? There's a great need, therefore, to indulge into economic recovery immediately and today, to restore confidence and trust in the minds and the hearts of people. But that cannot happen without us being conscious about changes that are happening in the world today. The world is breathing already because we have stopped moving. That's a very important sign, giving us a signal that the new norm after Corona or in Corona is a norm that we should be quite aware of. I'm sure that Geoffrey is a person that knows how to talk to us about it. We have to get some opportunities out of this crisis. There is no crisis without an opportunity. It's born out of it. We need to now immediately get that good stuff out of this catastrophe that has hit us all. Thank you so much, Jürgen, again for this good opportunity, and I thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to hear you, Geoffrey.
Yeah, and also
thank you so much.
Thank you, Taleb. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned, because you will also be there, or you're even involved in the Financial Strategy for Recovery Summit, what is upcoming on June 10th. It's going to be a really exciting event. I think it starts at 10 a.m. London time. It's free. And every one of you, we partnered with you at this event, and with Ibrahim in Mauritius, is welcome to attend. It's very easy to find it. If you go to our website, rebuilding.travel, and click on upcoming events, you can see it and you can register directly. So just go to rebuilding.travel, upcoming event, and I think it's something you don't want to miss. As far as I know, Taleb, you have like Gloria speaking from WTTC and many known people in the industry.
Many ministers are going to take part in this. It's ITIC, International Tourism and Investment Conference, and WTM, World Travel and Tourism Market. So I hope that you all join us at 10 o'clock London time on the 10th of June. Thank you for reminding me, Jürgen. You're always very kind with us.
No, thank you. I'm looking forward. And Vijay told me earlier, and I'm really thank you, Vijay, for being such a loyal guest. Vijay is in Singapore, and if you don't know him, he is our expert in the aviation industry. Formerly, he was with Etihad Airways. He was a VP and is now in a consulting business in Singapore. I know you said you had to leave maybe a little bit early. So if there's anything what is up, Geoffrey will be speaking upcoming, feel free to intervene. Just click on the blue hand. And we make sure we hear you, because you always have something very constructive to contribute.
Hi, BJ. Hi. Hi, BJ.
So without further ado, Geoffrey, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Yes, we can, very clearly, very clearly.
Excellent. Look, first of all, I want to thank my old friend Jürgen, who I've called Thomas for 20 years. You have a remarkable capacity for jumping into new things and making it look as though you've been there all your life. And you're a remarkable person on the travel and tourism scene. And it's been really a pleasure to be working with you all these years. And I'm so happy to see you with that lovely backdrop of Hawaii. And also, Taleb, I should say a special hello to you. We did work together at UNWTO, and I think we managed to do some positive things in a world where multilateralism was assumed, as distinct from today when it has to be fought for. I'm going to do two things today. I'm going to try to show you a video, a very short video, which will be released tomorrow with SunX Malta, the organization that I'm heading up with Leslie Vella, and with the World Travel and Tourism Council. And the video is called Bend Our Trend. It's 90 seconds. And it is our hope that people in the travel and tourism world will take this on board as an indicator of how we have to adjust over the coming years to make sure that we respond to the bigger crisis than COVID-19, which is the crisis of climate change. And I think we all know this. The challenge is keeping the focus when we're inundated with information, when we have the terrible hitting the wall effect of COVID-19. So that's like you're dying because somebody's sticking a knife in you. Whereas with the climate change, this is much more like the frog, which is put in slowly boiling water and it dances around happily till it dies because it's going to die. And I want you to think, for those of you who've ever seen three-dimensional chess, which is where you play chess on 3 boards at the same time. And COVID-19 is on the top board. But every move that is made with COVID-19 on the top board
I don't hear you,
the 2
Geoffrey.
boards underneath. Hello?
Yes,
you're
we
back,
hear you now.
Geoffrey. We hear you now.
Yes.
Okay. The 2 boards underneath in three-dimensional chess are going to be more serious. The climate change crisis, for those people who are already experiencing it, like the people in the Caribbean who are having the terrible storms or the droughts which are occurring, the forest fires, and the climate refugees and the unleashing of disease will be like COVID-19 on steroids. And what I want to do today is talk to you about what we're doing in SunX Malta. It's very practical. It's done in lockstep with our friends at WTTC. Gloria and I are old friends, and Gloria took 2 years ago when she had WTTC and her members commit to a climate neutral 2050. That's the magic words of the UNFCCC. And what we are doing in partnership with them, we created an SDG 17 partnership. We're trying to provide that same underpinning that WTTC has had from the economic side, from Oxford Economics over the years. And we're able to do this, I have to say, for 2 reasons. First of all, SunX stands for the Strong Universal Network, and the X stands for existential, which is to remind me all the time that climate change is existential. And if we don't fix it, everybody on here, our grandchildren, are being condemned to either freeze or to fry, our grandchildren. So Strong Universal Network was created with my friend and mentor, the late Maurice Strong, who for half a century was advocating the need for climate resilience for the global community. He created the Stockholm Environment Conference in 1972. He was involved in the creation of the World Economic Forum, in the creation of the Brundtland Commission. He was the Secretary General of the Earth Summit in Rio in 1992. And he has been the creator of the UNF.
I think we lost Geoffrey.
Of the IPCC. He built most of the institutions the world community is using to build a long-term strategy to deal with this monumental planetary challenge. And we found a willing partner in Malta, a small island state, 28 kilometers by 15 kilometers, but with an incredible tradition and history at the crossroads of humanity. and a small state which has played a really important part in climate activity. It was Malta that put climate change on the UN agenda in 1988. Malta, that small island state. It was Malta that put the law of the sea on the UN agenda and provided the first Secretary General of the UN FCCC. And we found a willing partner there. They have a visionary young Minister of Tourism and Consumer Protection, Giulia Ferrugia Portelli, and she has thrown herself behind this activity and has committed to make Malta a climate-friendly travel centre for the world. And what we are doing is working with the institutions in Malta to put in place a resource for the travel and tourism sector that can help at no cost, I repeat, at no cost, that can help every company and every community to make this long-term transformation. And today I'm going to explain to you how we're going to do that, and also that tomorrow, which is World Environment Day, we will launch a strategic campaign with WTTC as a co-partner it's called Bend Our Trend. And if I can get the video to play, I'm going to try to do this now. Thomas, I can.
Yes, you should be able to share your screen, Geoffrey.
Can you see this?
No, you might want to, there's a green button on the very bottom. If you click this button, it should share your screen. And then you click on the window you wanted to share. But your connection is not too good, so I'm worried about your connection, to be honest with you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Now, there we go. Now we can see your screen.
I'm sorry, could you see before the video?
No, but we're seeing your screen now. But it's an empty screen from my end.
Technology was never my strong point. I wonder if I can have one more try, if you're going to try to get back into you. Are we back again?
I see, we see your screen, Geoffrey. It's a black screen we see.
No, well, it's unfortunate.
Maybe we're viewing your screen, but it's all black. I think your internet connection, Geoffrey, is not too good on your end.
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, if you can hear me, I'm going to leave my screen the way it is, and I'm just going to talk.
Okay, so I'm going to let's take the screen. I'm going to try to take the screen back from you.
Can you see my screen now?
No. Geoffrey, we cannot see your screen.
Okay. Well, forget the screen. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, yes.
Okay. I'm going to try and get rid of the screen somehow.
Sorry about that.
It says I cannot share the screen while the other part. I'm going to leave that there. Can you see this?
No, you can. But you're no longer on screen sharing. You would have to, if you want to try it one more time, just press the green button again, because I got you back here. It was me. I kicked you out.
No, I'm going to leave it because the green button seems to have disappeared.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes. So yeah, I think
Okay.
you just have to talk, I guess.
let me just talk. Our sector, travel and tourism, is 10% of the world economy. Everybody on this call knows this. That's the stuff that UNWTO and WTTC have been talking about for so long. It's 5% plus of the carbon, and that amount is growing as the sector grows and as other modes than aviation find alternative non-carbon producing fuel. And projections are that by 2030, 2040, we will have moved from 5% to 10% to 15% of the world's carbon pollution. The world has put in a plan in Paris in 2015, the Paris Agreement, the purpose of which is to get everybody in the world, every company, every community, to get to zero carbon by 2050. And we as a travel and tourism community have not only a responsibility, but a vested interest to play our part in that. And I think the truth is, and I've been involved in the green stuff for 25 years, it's always the stuff that people put into their brochures. It's always the stuff that people acknowledge has to be the future. But when the crunch comes, it's always the issue which gets pushed to the back of the queue. And I can give you a real-time example of this. The excellent paper that UNWTO has produced on the climate, on the health elements of the C-19 crisis has 43 specific components. And item number 42 is climate resilience.
Jeffrey, if I may just interrupt for 1 second, Ollie was nice enough. He sent me the video you wanted to show. So when you're ready, it's a minute video, I believe. I can try to show it from my end, just for your information.
Can you try to do that? Because it will make it so much easier, and I will be able to talk for so much less.
Okay. Can you see that?
Ollie is a superstar.
Okay, I hope that helped. Jeffrey, did you? I hope you guys saw the video.
Yeah, look, I apologize for that. It's an example of how you should get this stuff organized first. Can you hear me, Thomas?
Yes, and I hope you saw the video. I played it, so.
Yeah, the issue is 6 months ago, we issued with WTTC a sector-wide report on how climate change is being dealt with by the travel and tourism sector. And the bottom line of the report was, it's not being dealt with adequately. We're not going far enough. We're not going fast enough. And if we want to meet our responsibilities and our obligations like other sectors of society are doing, we have to start to do these three things which are indicated in the video, and we have to start them now. And we call this climate-friendly travel. I believe the only long-term future for travel and tourism, including the critically important aviation sector, is that we put ourselves in the middle of the global change. And not that we have an excuse that we're different, that we are the most pivotal industry affected by climate change. We have based our product on predictable weather patterns. We have sited a lot of it at the seashore where the increase is going to be. So we should be the first who are out there in the leadership of implementing the Paris Agreement. And our way of doing this has been to create a concept of climate-friendly travel. Climate-friendly travel has three very clear components. First, it's a reduction of carbon and other greenhouse gases. You have to measure what your carbon is, you have to get a plan, and you have to reduce it. That's what the Paris Agreement says. Everybody on this call is coming from a country which has filed a carbon reduction plan with the UN Climate Agency. Every country in the world has done this. It only makes common sense that travel and tourism should align itself with those national plans and hence with the global plan. So the first thing is we have to reduce carbon. The second thing is we have to link with the relevant SDGs so that our product will be a green product that will give us a license to grow. If our product is not meeting the SDGs, I suggest we don't have a license to grow. And that includes aviation. If aviation cannot produce a synthetic non-carbon fuel by 2030, 2040, I believe just as if it was unsafe or insecure, airlines should not have a license to operate because they will be killing the grandchildren of everybody on this call. So the first thing is reduce carbon. The second thing is align with the SDGs. And most people on this call know that, that there are 17 SDGs, 200 indicators, and 150 targets. It's massive. It's the future of everything. And every community and every company will be aligned with different ones. But as companies and as communities, we have to start deciding which are the ones we build into our future travel products. So the first thing is reduce carbon. The second thing is get in line with the SDGs. And the third thing is make sure that your long-term targets fits the Paris 1.5 agreement basis. That's where the world is going. And I believe even with the United States, that's where the world is going to go. And we have an opportunity to put it not into today's action, not into tomorrow's action, but to build it into our strategic planning. Every company and every community has a strategic plan. It's my belief that climate-friendly travel should be at the core of that strategic plan, and that every company and every community should have some bright young people, the ones who care, the Greta Thunberg generation, who are helping to keep them online with that plan, who wake up in the morning and they don't worry about the finances of the company. They don't worry about the human resource policy of the company. Their job is to make sure that the company keeps on its Paris Agreement targets. And that companies manifest this to their consumers because it's absolutely clear that tomorrow's consumers and those who have seen the blue skies during the lockdown, those consumers would welcome this kind of travel and would allow the sector to grow. It would put an end to the flight shame activity, because if travel and tourism is a leader in low carbon operations, who can argue about its development? It's in our own interest to position ourselves in this place. And in doing this, we have also, in Sunex Malta, said we are not going to be just a talking shop. We're not going to be a conference organizing group. We're going to put in place some tools, simple tools that will help travel companies and travel communities to produce climate-friendly travel. And in the video, we show we're building with the Institute of Tourism Studies in Malta. We're building 5 hubs, as we call them. The first one is a registry of long-term climate neutral ambitions. And every company and community in the world outside travel and tourism is lining up in a registry created by the UNFCCC. And we have an agreement with that organization that we will produce in Malta a registry for travel and tourism. And people will make a plan, a long-term climate neutral plan. We will have the capacity to help them do this, and they will file it on the registry. And then through technology, people will be able to go in and see the climate neutral plans of all the players. And we're making agreements. We have a database which we built of good practice, a portal. We have a visibility hub with organizations like Sustainable First and Green Maps, which will allow companies to show their activity to the consumer. We have to create a link to the marketplace. So through the registry, people will be able to make their commitments and show what they're doing. This annual updating of data to keep itself on track. And then we have a learning hub. We've introduced the first ever climate-friendly travel diploma for graduate students with the ITS in Malta, in Gozo. And we will be running courses starting in October. And because of the current crisis, the first year we will run them like this with Zoom sessions. But it's absolutely clear to me, our generation talks about these issues, but puts it at the back. Tomorrow's generation grew up and we have to build. So we're planning to put in place by 2030 100,000 what we call strong climate champions, who will be in every UN state to help companies and communities make this transformation. And my final point is we've introduced this at no cost. There is nothing to stop companies or communities making a plan, filing it, and using it to make their own transformation. So tomorrow on World Environment Day, with the World Travel and Tourism Council, we will, I think, fulfill some of the vision of my friend and mentor, the late Laura Strong, in introducing a global system for climate-friendly travel. And we would like everybody on this call to look at this seriously. And if you agree with us, put it into your own thinking and planning and communicating. And we are there to work with everybody to try to, this is not a simple issue. This is a complicated issue. It's a long-term issue. It's a transformational issue. It's all those things that make you push it to one side and say, yes, but do nothing. If we do nothing, our grandchildren, everybody look in the mirror, our grandchildren are being condemned to the kind of hurricanes that we saw in the Bahamas, to the kind of forest fires that we saw in Australia, to the kind of climate migration that we are seeing out of Africa. And we must start this now. Thank you very much, Jürgen.
No, thank you, Geoffrey. And we have two raising hands right now. Let me go to Taleb was first. Taleb, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. I truly appreciate all what Geoffrey is saying and doing. He's committed his life and his future to all of this cause. It's very, very commendable, Geoffrey. Thank you so much. I do have 2 points, however. Point number one is we're living in a different world today. It's a corona world. People are not thinking about anything else other than getting out of this. The question is, how does our doctrine, how does our dialogue change now? In other words, how do we combine, how do we connect the issue of climate change with the issue of corona? Is the real challenge, Geoffrey. It's not just to talk about the same. I mean, what we talk about now is what we heard about it 6 months ago. The world has changed completely. So we need to change our narrative somehow. My second point is about airlines. I agree that airlines are a major element, but they're not all what emits carbon in our sector. They represent only 1/3 of the 5%, 1/2 maybe. The airlines are doing a good job, generally speaking. They were doing a good job for corona. I think we need to look at the entire spectrum, not just about airlines. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Taleb. Also, Vijay raised his hand. Go ahead, Vijay.
And thank you very much, Geoffrey. There was a very compelling and passionate presentation, which only you know how to make. But because you raise a very critical issue, and I'm talking here, if you were in the context of, let's say, end of last year, aviation has always been recognized as being a force for good, bringing a lot of positive to the world. But the Achilles heel of aviation, to my mind, has always been its environmental impact. It's been struggling for years to actually mitigate that environmental impact. But it has reached a point where, as of last year, the only credible option it had was actually an offset program, which ICAO adopted. And to me, that's a sign of basically of weakness, because the real credible option should be on technology, on finding aircraft, engines, and fuel, which are all environmentally friendly. In the absence of that, carbon offsetting has been the credible option on the table. And I think we need now, in today's world, where the tolerance level has really gone to its lowest, which is why you're seeing people campaigning against governments funding airlines. You've seen the reputational damage is much more visible today. And after the last 3 months, where people have seen, in a way, the benefits, the environmental benefits of less airlines flights, people are going to demand much more from governments, from airlines, on the environmental platform, much more than ever before. So I think we need, as an industry, to step up to this, and rather than react to that change, in a way, go step forward, in a way, be on the front foot of that change. And necessity is always the mother of inventions. And I think we need to raise the bar for innovators, for scientists, for aircraft manufacturers, engine manufacturers, fuel industry, to actually come up with something which will help us deal with that reputational issue we have, which will only grow. The reality is we have obviously had less impact as an industry over the last few months. Doesn't mean we have to now snap back into where we were last year. We need to actually adjust and make the changes before we are forced to make some which we will never be able to make, which will then cut our growth. I think you make a good point, good compelling point. The question I had for you, Geoffrey, is if you look at ICAO's carbon offsetting program, the CORSIA, you recall it actually, the baseline for the buying of offset is 2019, 2020. And clearly the 2020 level of emissions will be much lower than expected because of COVID. And because of that, airlines will have to pay much more for carbon offsets going forward as from 2021. There are some campaigning, of course, for changing the baseline now to accommodate for that drop. Is that something which the industry should support, or should basically step up and actually stick to the agreed baseline, even though it will mean more expenses for the airlines? Thank you, Geoffrey.
Thank you very much. Geoffrey, do you want to respond to this, or you want me to take more comments?
No, I'd be happy to respond, because I feel very strongly about this point that Vijay makes, and he makes it, as always, so well. The first time I met Vijay, we were both much younger men, and Vijay was actually working with Mauritius at that time, you recall, and he was remarkably, in his 20s or 30s, he was the president of the special ICAO conference, which was looking at bringing ICAO into the economics of aviation. So there's no better person in the world to be posing the question. Look, Vijay, my answer is twofold. And I'll come to the question of the base in a second. The real issue with all of the lobbying around the carbon offset system that ICAO has put in place is it's a bit like Churchill said about democracy. It's the worst political system known to man, except for every other political system known to man. The governments in ICAO created CORSIA at the request of IATA. IATA developed the CORSIA underpinnings with the offset a long time before it ever saw the light in ICAO. And it is the system that we have now. And it has so-called weaknesses. If the price has to be at a level which makes people make that shift that you're talking about, then that's what it should be. We should stop worshipping at the shrine of the lowest fare and the lowest price. There should be a price for carbon which reflects its impact on society and which is then put into airfare. And if that means airfares goes up, that means that flying has to adjust. Now, last point, Vijay, or last but one point. It's not the starting point that's the weakness in CORSIA, it's the finishing point. And that was an IATA strategy that you may well have been involved in crafting. And that says that by 2050, we will only be polluting to the extent of half we were polluting in 2005. It's very complicated. It sounds complicated. And of course, it is complicated. But instead of saying, like the rest of the world says, we want zero carbon by 2050, we've got some notional figure of half the pollution. We want a special deal. In fact, the aviation sector and the massive fossil fuel companies should make a moonshot to get a synthetic non-carbon fuel. The fuel companies are spending hundreds of millions on exploration for new fields of what should be a stranded asset. And they're not spending the research and development to produce a low energy, a synthetic, like hell on everybody's television screen about how they're a new energy company beyond petroleum, etc. So I think the Corsair scheme is the best we have. The airline effort to change the base, I think, is understandable. My view on it is immaterial. They'll either succeed or they'll fail. But the real thing is they have to have a target for 2050, which is the same as Paris 1.5, and not create a special situation 30, 40 years in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much, Geoffrey. We have Julian, I think he's also from Malta, and Deepak, and also Pankaj raising hands. So maybe we start with Dr. Julian Zarb. I believe you're joining us from Malta, Julian, aren't you?
Hi, good morning. Yes, good morning from Malta, Jürgen, and especially Geoffrey. I'd like to thank Geoffrey for a wonderful presentation. Geoffrey is actually participating in our own think tank between the Malta Tourism Society and the University of Malta at the moment. And you know, I take this moment, and this is what I've been saying for the last few weeks. This is a watershed moment when it comes to tourism. Tourism is not only in downtime, it's in shutdown. So we have and we had the opportunities to look to the future in a different way. We have the opportunity of not returning to the old normal, which, believe it or not, you know, we have to admit, the old normal had its very serious problems. It had over-tourism, it had sustainable issues. We've been talking about these for 30 years. Now we had that moment to do something different. I, first of all, have developed three different, what I call the 3 R's of restructuring tourism: reflect, redevelop, and restore. Those are the 3 steps which I think any government, any authorities, any type of tourism entity needs to follow. We need to get to this new normal. And I think what Geoffrey is doing, not only in Malta and hopefully in a generalizable way across the globe, should change to this type of procedure, should change to a new normal of tourism, which is going to be different and which I think needs to be effective and to be implemented. One thing I will say, after mentioning the integrated approach and the fact that we need to have the involvement of key stakeholders here, Jürgen, I find that there's a shortage even at this very important seminar, this very important forum, of politicians and business people. Where are the, you know, we're preaching to the converted here. We're all people who believe in this, and I'm sure this is why we're here. There's 82 people on this forum, and I'm sure they all believe that this is the right thing. Are there any politicians among them? Are there any business people among them? Those are the people that also matter and that need to take this forward. So thanks very much, Jürgen. Thanks very much, Geoffrey. Let's keep up the momentum. Thanks.
No, thank you, Julian. And we can only try to share it with everyone. For instance, for this call, we had 283 people registered now so far. On and off, we have 82 right now, so close to 100 with coming and going. So it's a good start. We're getting there, and we will make sure that all the information is shared and multiplied. And yes, we do have both the public sector represented here from many different regions, and also good players from the private sector. So there's a good mix. It's not huge, but we're just building it.
Can I offer a comment on Julian's comment?
Sure, Geoffrey.
I think we have to also be realistic. I'm not suggesting you're not being realistic, Julian, but the reality is that what people are going to focus on in the immediate future is the restart of the sector, and most people whose jobs are involved, livelihoods, and who just do their normal job as part of this massive global system with thousands, hundreds of thousands of moving parts, they just want to get back to business. And despite all the nice comments about resetting, and of course we need to do this, but realism tells me that we will not be able to do this because there'll be an avalanche of restarting. We have to take a strategic view. We have to do it with our children and our grandchildren. We have to make sure that we evolve tourism. We are not going to radically change it to be a COVID. Ask Booking.com if they're planning to sell half of their business as their business objective. Ask airlines if they're planning to take rows out to allow for social distancing. Of course they're not. They're going to go back as close to business as normal as is possible. And the last point, Thomas, I love you for setting up this call. It's terrific. But there's 80 people. The world is 7 billion. If we want, it won't matter how many politicians we get on this call. In WTTC in 1992, we set out a strategy to create an organization that would send messages over time to politicians. We have to use those institutions now. It's why I'm so pleased that we're working with WTTC, and I'd love to work with UNWTO, Taleb, if it were possible to get on their radar screen. But we have to take this long-term view, Julian. It's not going to change overnight because people can see the Himalayas from India. It's not going to change, sadly.
Yeah, thank you, Geoffrey. I can agree. We have a huge task in front of us. And I think the louder we can get, it's not sometimes the numbers, it's the right people to getting to the other right people that can really make a change. And that's what we can try. But I know Deepak from Nepal, we're just talking about the Himalayan, raised his hand. Hi, Deepak, welcome.
Hi, Jürgen. Namaste to you all. Namaste from Nepal. Thank you, Geoffrey, for your powerful points. I think there is already an urgent call of the time to think and act more responsibly now. And it is, the climate-friendly travel, it is a very right time to promote and push this issue again, because the this COVID-19 has created a very strong emotional base for this kind of activities. I think with 3 priorities, as Dr. Taleb also mentioned about the aviation transportation, I think if we put a kind of priority to act on, for example, one is the transportation sector, both aviation and surface transport. Second is the FMCG products, in which we, in our daily life, we use the plastic wrapped food or packed food type of, not only food, the other items. And third is the cooking gas or fuel type of thing also. So in these 3 areas, if we can work more, I think we can certainly bring some positive changes, especially at this time. I think anything to create more impact, we need to make it a kind of glamorized, to bring into mainstream. After COVID-19, I think this agenda, it will be easier to bring into mainstream as a mainstream travel activity of climate-friendly travel. So thank you, Geoffrey, for pushing this again. And we are ready to adopt it. Very recently, we have developed protocol for the industry, and where we have mandatorily put a kind of sustainable tourism practices and green practices also in the protocol. Thank you, Jordan.
No, thank you very much, Deepak. And I know Nepal always has gone its own way and has it's been very progressive, specifically in the environmental issues, and also under your leadership when you run the Nepal Tourism Board. Thank you for participating, Deepak. Benjamin from the UK, he raised his hand.
Thank you. Good morning. Good day. The conversation started talking about how multilateralism has become rather a thing of the past. The leaders of the so-called free world who rather failed in their leadership, thinking particularly in the US and the UK. It seems to me that people are talking more and more about community being part of the future tourism, and we have to go back to grassroots. And I think the registry idea that the Sun Programme is talking about is quite a dull idea, but it's actually really powerful because it's an opportunity for community-based organizations, small organizations to take the lead and show that it isn't up to the big corporations, the big countries to do this, that, and the other, but actually small organizations, community-based trusts, they can actually lead our way out of this crisis. And the registry that's being, I think, launched next month, it is an opportunity for a lot of people to share small is beautiful and the small things that small organizations can do, and they can lead the change. I'd really like to see us promoting more the small and what we can do individually within our communities, rather than just relying on the big leaders of the world who are failing. We have to take the lead ourselves.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Very, very true point. Also, I wanted to remind everyone, any type of ideas, projects you're involved in, we have a resource column on our page, and I know a number of you already sent information. We upload it the minute we get it. It's for everyone to see and to act, and some of this we also bring to my publication, eTurbo News, and we share with others. So we do want to contribute getting messages out and make this discussion group even more effective. There is, I don't know, Peter, did you raise your hand? Okay, Peter Burnham, okay, and then we have Pankaj also. Peter, could you unmute yourself, please? Go ahead.
Yes, good morning to you, Jürgen, and good morning to everybody. I'm building, I think, on Benjamin's point, which is that as an economist, I find the problem with the tourism industry is it's about competition. You know, bigger, longer buffets, everything is about more and more of the physical things and less of the what I consider to be the true values of tourism, which are local communities, knowledge, experiencing a new culture, new foods, this kind of thing. These have given away to things like selfie tourism, which is, I think, one of the ghastly aspects of recent developments in the tourism industry. So the question is an economics one. How do you stop the creature from killing itself with this over competition, creating, 7 stars, 8 stars, 9 stars, wherever that will end? It seems to be about more physical things and not more emotional and meaningful things.
I think it's an excellent point. Geoffrey, do you want to respond to this? Or? I think we may have lost it.
No, I'm here, and I'm trying to put some focus on it. The challenge that we've got is that many smart people, and many on this call, have the right idea for the solution, but the industry is an incredibly complex set of activities which link businesses and communities and link businesses and governments and national governments and local governments. And, you know, just to take one example, I heard a presentation by Jane Hulpy the other day, who runs the ICAO Environment Program. And she said something I didn't know after 50 years. She said, when an aeroplane takes off, and the figure she used, I'm not sure of it, it has to meet 12,000 standards, which have been painstakingly established over the years to make sure that it doesn't drop out of the sky. And at the end of the day, we have the system, Peter. It's competitive. That's not because of our activities. That's because for the past 20 years, our world has been moved towards a free market type of activity.
I think we may have lost.
We won't make them back. If we can move in the right direction now, it'll be better for our kids. It'll be better for our grandkids. We won't make magic changes, whether it's through in-face meetings or video meetings. We might just build a constituency that creates pressures for change.
Thank you, Geoffrey. We had Pankaj also in Nepal raising his hand. Namaste, Pankaj.
Namaste, Thomas. Namaste, Professor Lipman. First and foremost,
Hi,
I think we are, how are you? Good to see you after almost 4 years. And thank you for, being an alumni of your Green Growth Summer School. I still remember those days in Brussels, learning, great ideas of yours. And now in this unprecedented time, of course, we want to be mindful and to start this impact travel, as you've been leading climate-friendly travel, of course. And Nepal, of course, it was eyeing to get about 2 million tourists in 2020, which now is completely ruled out. So it is not towards the over-tourism as yet. However, when we move from the present survival mode to revival and reinventing the businesses for Nepal and in this region, I personally think as a tour operator, we will face tremendous challenge because we are starting from ground zero now. And every destination would be striving to get the fair share from the global market. So obviously the price would be the key game changer, right? So we need to be competitive. At the same time, we need to be sustainable. So what would be your advice to destinations like Nepal or in the Himalayan region, Bhutan? We would not be inexpensive destination, plus the airfare is all-time high in this part of the world. So how do we remain competitive and gain a fair share of business back, being mindful of environment friendly, or as you call it, climate friendly products? Any suggestions? We know that we want magic pill, but you might have very bitter pill, but we are ready to take it.
Geoffrey.
Well, no, it's good to hear you, Pankaj, and nice to see you. I don't think I'm visible at the moment, but look, I don't have any magic answers. I'm sorry. I'd love to be able to say you should do this or that. You start with one advantage, and that advantage in the context of climate-friendly travel is that you have a relatively pristine country and a relatively clean product, and you have an authentic product. And I think if I were in your position, I would be taking absolute control over costs, because you won't get the revenue that you had planned. Nobody will, not for this year, not for next year. And I would develop a strategy which identifies us as a unique destination which is right in the center of the kind of travel and tourism that people who think about it would like to experience. You have a special experience, and you have the challenge that for most of the major markets, you're some distance away. And obviously, you know, your friends in India would be, and China to me would be two of your biggest opportunities. But as David Gillibrand says, what do I know? I'm just one voice.
Thank you, Geoffrey. And we're actually over our time, but it's really an active discussion, so I hate to interrupt this. And I know Taleb also raised his hand, so let's go to Taleb. Go ahead, Taleb. I think you're unmuted. No, you are not unmuted. Unmute, there we go. Okay. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to the issue of who are we. We're not policymakers. We're not going to make any capable of making any decisions. So we're not businessmen and we're not politicians here. That's a fact. But we could together discuss how to go from this point on. I think what Geoffrey is saying is very, very important here. We need to draw a plan of how to move from this point on. This plan must be based on two things. Number one is, what do we do knowing realistically that we're in the middle of a corona crisis? We can't ignore that. It's an opportunity, but we have to bring up elements of this opportunity. I think what PJ said is very important. In other words, what I'm saying here is that we have to draw a plan for people to follow. And this plan must be based on the realistic fact that we are passing through a period of time where there is no tourism really. And people's minds and hearts are somewhere else. But it's an opportunity for us to redraft our new norm now. The second point here is what Deepak has said is very important. We need to have a comprehensive plan, not just to focus on airlines. Airlines are one element, very important element. But there are other aspects of climate change that are caused by our activity, by our human activity called travel and tourism. We should look at the comprehensive thing over here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Geoffrey, again for bringing this topic, very timely project now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Taleb. Much appreciated. Also welcome, I forgot to mention Zoltan, I think joining us maybe from Hungary. I don't know where you are now, but it's good to see you.
Zoltan. Been a long time, Zoltan.
Clearly in the sunshine.
Been a long time, Zoltan.
Can I just make one point?
Go ahead, Geoffrey. Well, the environment is not too friendly to Geoffrey right now. I think he's... Geoffrey, we cannot hear you. No. It looks like we lost Geoffrey for a minute, but since we lost him, maybe I have one more point.
Thomas, in addition, Taleb said, and I know with...
Okay, I think I now actually muted him on top of it. Let's get back to Geoffrey in just a minute, and before we probably have to come to a close. But okay, there we go. Go ahead, Geoffrey, then.
Yeah. Thomas, you have a wonderful technique. You say, over to Geoffrey, and then you mute me. It's excellent. Look, I tell him, I don't want to in any way deviate from your thinking about a comprehensive plan. My feeling is two or three things. This group has no power. I'm sorry to say it, but we have no power. Even if we can get messages out, we don't have power. And if you create a plan, the question is, who are the we who implements the plan? We live in a complicated world of left-wing and right-wing governments, of autocracies and of open societies. And all of that change is going to take place. I think we have to have two or three points of reference that we always keep going. For us, it's climate-friendly travel. We want all travel to be climate friendly. That will make sure that future markets aren't arguing that we're screwing up the environment. That's the first point of reference. The second point is there's a UN system that says climate neutral by 2050. We should say, yes, we will be. It's a hell of a long time to get our act together. If we can't get our act together in 40 years, there's no hope for us. So we should have a bold ambition, not a narrow ambition that says half of our pollution of 2005. That's claptrap. That's alphabet organization holding the waves back because you don't want the change. We have to have the change on the climate because it's existential and because it's the one thing, everything else, I've used this before, but everything else is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic if you don't avoid the bloody iceberg.
Thanks, Geoffrey. No, a wonderful comment. And I agree with you. This group, of course, we don't have any political power yet, but we are, I would say, a beginning of a grassroots initiative, a grassroots movement. And grassroots movements, actually, we've seen it in our country, in the United States, can be quite important and actually can get the attention of those that have power. And if they sometimes can actually change the balance of powers of people actually who will have power in the future. So I wouldn't discredit this, and I think we can stay on this. Now it's the time. We're all going through a crisis we've never went before in our lifetime. We all don't know what the future will show, and I think it's important to raise our voices, to help the industry to relaunch and do our part in being heard loud and clear, and that's all we can try, I guess. But before we come to an end, I have an issue. We had another conference, and some of you were on this conference. This was Africa Day, and one of the challenges and discussions that came up during this conference was communication in Africa or in countries that are not so connected when it comes to the internet, and the internet specifically now in global initiatives that includes educational activities and so forth is so important to have and to access. And I'm just a long shot. We have Tony. I don't know, Tony, if you're still here. If yes, not, I am. You're there. Tony is with a company, iFree in Hong Kong. And I know at the first meeting when we started African Tourism Board, he brought 200 some SIM cards with him. And this was these cards were programmed that you can actually use them in any country in Africa to get free or very reasonable access to the internet. And it didn't have to, you don't really have to be online. Maybe you can, you have an idea what would help some of the countries that are not so connected to become more connected, specifically in these challenging times right now.
Yes, I think. Hello, everybody. I think communication is crucial going forward, even when we're talking about our arguments and resources for climate change. But bringing communication, education, healthcare, tracking to rural areas as well is quite important. So what we're trying to work with operators throughout the world. And in Africa now, we're really looking to see how we can find climate-friendly ways to actually bring internet access to rural areas. And so we're working on a few projects that we can actually have a mesh communication system where the actual devices become the broadcaster of the signals, and that just helps to bring it on. And they're powered by solar. So we're looking at a lot of different things to do. The problem is getting the different countries to have a policy that's quite singular, but and also pricing. Different countries have different monopolies. They have different margins and different markets. So that's the challenge we have, but we're working with the African Tourism Board and ministries of tourism and health to see how we can actually come up with some pan-African. We already have pan-Europe. We have most of Asia packages, so you just turn up and you're connected wherever you are. So this is what we want to try and do. So communication is crucial. It's crucial in this COVID pandemic. Tracking is also essential. So having the resources everywhere, it will help the world be a better place, I think.
Thank you very much, Tony. And if you like, if there's any information what you think might be useful to this group and people who are listening to this group, but are quite a few more, to share it, and we can include it on the website. Or if there's a workshop of people may be interested in the subject, we can create such a workshop. And the same is also for the climate issue, because the climate issue is very important. And that's why I asked Geoffrey to speak here today. Unfortunately, guys, we're almost 20 minutes over our time. And thank you very much for everyone to be with us today. I will make the video available to anyone after this, so give me till tomorrow. It's evening here, 10:20 in the evening here in Hawaii, but we put it together in the morning. It'll be on our website. And if you ever wanted to listen to any of the other sessions you weren't able to participate, you can easily go to our website and click on the archive and on videos, and you find the information. The main point, again, we would really like to hear what you're doing, in what initiatives you're involved in, so we can share it with others. If you already started reopening your tourism industry, we started reopeningtourism.com. It's a site we're promoting now to list and showcase those initiatives and those resorts and destinations that are actually in the process of reopening their destination. Share this information through the through the media, through our own media with ETN, but also beyond that, and collect this information on the website. The first, it's a commercial initiative, so it's not free 100%, but it's free to members who are listed here on this forum for the first month. And after this, it's $75, so it's not going to be very expensive. But it's a good thing, I think, to really get your message out and actually not only get the message out that you're open for business, but also encourage other destinations to follow your path, and we can all learn from each other. And this is really what this group is about. Well, I hope all of you have a nice Thursday here. The Wednesday is almost finished, 10:20 here in Hawaii, 10:20 in Frankfurt, and I know it's like 3:20 in Hong Kong. And so good night, good morning, world. It was a pleasure having you all together today. And don't forget, on June 10th, the investment conference where Taleb also will be having a major part. Just go to the website, click on upcoming events, and you can find the details and register for it. There's no charge to be part of this summit as well. Good night from here, and thank you very much. And next week we will have another meeting. It'll be in daytime, 12 hours, so our guests in North America can easier participate. By the 2 weeks, we're going to be again at the same time. And in the meantime, please stay in touch and make sure you all read Itogo News. And good night from Hawaii. Aloha.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Cheers.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.